Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about a topic that I get asked about quite often through emails and DMs and messages, and that is trauma-informed body piercing and body modification work. I have a lot of folks who will seek me out because they are interested in work that is able to allow them to reclaim parts of their body or experiences they've had, reconnect with parts of their body or themselves after trauma, or just act as a catharsis, a release, or just an emotionally empowering moment or experience or marker or signifier of things going on in their life. This can range from people who are recently divorced out of a unsafe or just unpleasant marriage, getting a piercing as a way to celebrate this new chapter of their life and be free from that. It can look like sexual assault victims getting body piercings, especially genital piercings, in order to take agency over these parts of their bodies, but also have something there that their abuser has never touched and feel like they've created a new body and new parts of their anatomy that are theirs. Look like folks who have been trapped in very strict religious situations. I would even go so far as to say cults, who are getting piercings as a way of saying that they're free from that and they're allowed to do what they want. These are most often, earlobe and nostril piercings, just very simple piercings that they weren't allowed to get while they were still in that situation. There's lots of different examples of this kind of work, but I feel as though it all falls under the umbrella of trauma-informed work when we're talking about doing body piercings. There are lots of different definitions for trauma-informed work and trauma-informed care, defined as realizing the widespread impact of trauma and understanding the different paths to recovery. Recognizing signs and symptoms of trauma in patients, clients, staff, anyone you're working with, and integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, and actively trying to avoid any re-traumatization. Trauma-informed work absolutely has a place in the body piercing industry. Every year there is a convention of professional piercers in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's the biggest educational event for the industry that happens around the world, and there's dozens of classes that piercers can take. And I take the trauma-informed body piercing class every single year without fail. If some of the content is the same, I still feel like I learn more and more from just interacting with other students and interacting with the teacher every single time I take it. It is phenomenal. But outside of that, there are a lot of work resources for trauma-informed work in the medical field, in the mental health field, and in the physical care field that many of us piercers also use as a resource. And there are many piercers who are trauma-informed and who do have an education to try and help you specifically with getting piercings for these purposes. Now, you don't have to see a piercer who is trauma-informed in order to get a piercing that is a restorative and healing experience or helps you reclaim parts of your body. If you are at a certain point in your recovery and your relationship with your body and your mental health where you know getting a piercing is really going to help you on your journey, absolutely go for it. But if you are worried about the experience or worried about the potential of this being re-traumatizing, you can always seek out a trauma-informed piercer. And I find that this is especially important when folks are choosing to get pierced after experiencing physical or sexual violence. The trauma-informed piercer, they're going to very intentionally make that space a safe space for you, and a really huge way of creating these new positive memories with these parts of your body is how much and how important consent is when we are talking about doing trauma-informed work. This is something that I do with all of my clients, every single client, no matter what piercing it's doing, but it's especially important in situations like this one, and that is to get consent for every single touch. So right off the bat, before we start really doing anything, when I'm just going to clean and prep the area we're going to pierce, I will tell a client, okay, so next up I'm going to do some cleaning and some marking in this area. Is that okay? And I'll get the consent to clean and mark. And the whole time I'll let them know what's going on. I'll say, okay, right now I'm just cleaning the area. Next up you're going to feel me marking. You might feel me drawing on your skin. And we are going to help you navigate the entire process and all of the physical touch and contact that's happening, and check in for consent at every stage of the piercing. Consent to clean, consent to mark, talking about the marks, consent to get ready to pierce, consent for that actual piercing, and just letting you know what's happening that entire time. And this type of experience can be incredibly empowering for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different people, but especially folks who have been through instances of sexual trauma or physical violence. To have such an intimate and vulnerable experience, oftentimes centered around similar parts of your body, and with a stranger, you know, for most of us, your piercer is not someone you know super close, but to have a very consent-focused experience, in a very informed experience where that person feels like they are completely in control of what's happening to them, even though the piercer is who's doing it to them, it can be very healing to create new memories of a very positive, very consent-focused interaction with that part of their body. But the benefit of seeing a trauma-informed piercer doesn't stop once the piercing is done and with this experience that's been created in the piercing room. Something that we really talk about when we do trauma-informed educational work within the industry is the fact that piercings can bring up a lot of emotions for a lot of folks. If you've never experienced this, that's totally fine, but many folks who've experienced trauma will get a piercing and find that that brings up a lot of emotions. Sometimes they're really good emotions. Sometimes you feel euphoric afterwards. You're on cloud nine. You're like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, I'm so brave. I'm so tough. Like, you feel really, really good for the next couple of days. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes getting a body piercing, especially any form of intimate piercing or any piercing that it's an area of your body that's been affected or focused on by the trauma, can bring up a lot of those emotions and a lot of those memories, especially if there's still things that you're working through in therapy or that you haven't been ready to work through yet. And folks can feel very negatively afterwards. You can feel a bout of depression, you can feel sad, you can feel scared, you can feel intimidated. For a lot of folks who dealt with control issues where someone was controlling their body, telling them what they could and couldn't do with it, they feel shame and guilt surrounding deciding to get this piercing. And all of this is your body letting you go through these emotions that you need to go through to let go of some of these feelings and let go of some of this trauma and process it. But that doesn't make these feelings any easier to deal with in the moment. Piercer who is trauma informed and has this experience understands that this might happen and is there for you. You can reach back out to your piercer a day or two after getting pierced and say, hey, I'm having some big feelings about the fact that we did this piercing. I'm having a really hard time with it. Can I talk through some of this with you? And part of being a trauma-informed piercer is being present for clients if they have these needs, even after piercing. And I cannot tell you how many times I have sat with a client and talked with them, or they've called me a few days later and we sat on the phone and talked about some of these difficult feelings and difficult things that were coming up for them post-piercing, and just kind of affirmed that it was normal to feel this way and that this is part of the process and part of healing, and helping them reframe how they looked at their experience of piercing and make sure they really found empowerment and healing out of it. Trauma-informed work understands that these piercings and these experiences can bring this up for you, and it's not going to allow us as practitioners to leave you alone dealing with something like that. I have found a lot of healing and just a lot of empowerment through choosing to get piercings after situations of abuse and violence that I've experienced in my life, and there is something just incredibly, incredibly freeing that piercers can offer to those of us who have been through trauma, especially as far as reconnecting with our bodies, and feeling strong and brave and capable. And I am so honored to be able to bring that to other people and help other people find the same magic that I've found through body piercing for this. And I also think it's really awesome that folks know that there are a lot of trauma-informed piercers out there. Many piercers who've taken this class will have certificates on the walls in their studio showing that they've gone through trauma-informed education and training as a shop. Some studios go through one-on-one training with the instructor, and they may have that information hanging up, and you can always contact a piercer, email or message them, and see if they've had this specific training. Like I said, they offer the classes every single year at conference, and the instructor even comes around and does one-on-one training with studios, so there's lots of opportunities to get this. And it's not just these 1 or 2 classes, you know. Trauma-informed work also comes from reading literature on trauma-informed work. I've taken trauma-informed classes designed for yoga instructors and fitness instructors that help me navigate working with clients' bodies and working more informed in these spaces. But I want to encourage you, if you think that this is something that could be beneficial for you, that there are a lot of piercers out there who feel the same and have specific education about this work to try and make it as safe and comfortable of an experience as you'd like. This video is just kind of a brief overview of trauma-informed work as it relates to body piercing, but if you'd like me to delve deeper, I was kind of thinking about maybe doing a video going over some of the experiences I've had offering trauma-informed services, and just some of how it's been able to help folks. So yeah, if you think you'd like to see me do something like that, let me know in the comments down below. As per usual, it was wonderful sitting down and chatting with y'all, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye!